Tanse, Simon Nisse Nia Gasong, Oche Nia, Jackfish Lake Reserve. Hello, my name is Simon Moccasin, and I'm from Jackfish Lake Reserve, which is by North Battleford. They call it Saulteaux now, but the elders, they call it Jackfish Lake Reserve still, Little Jackfish Lake. And so I listen to the elders now. Never used to before. I wasn't around them, but now I listen to them. And I also listen to the ancestors nowadays as well. And they're telling us something, you know. I love storytelling. I've been storytelling for a while. And what got me more into storytelling was knowing who I was. And for the longest time I was lost. I didn't know who I was. But what helped me was the medicines. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the medicines before we start. And I would also like to thank the Saskatchewan Library Association as well as SaskTel for putting this on today, you know. And I know in those groups, people want to know. They want to know, you know, other cultures, but within our own right, we can only give so much. You know, if someone really wants to know, they'll go and seek it. They'll go and find an elder. Everyone can go to elders. You know, they're all here for you. They are. But prior to that, like, I guess I was sheltered away from my culture. And what got me back, as I was saying, was the medicine. And every time I feel myself starting to just get off the path, it's this that brings me back and puts me back on my path. Before we start telling stories, what we do is we have either a drum or a rattle, and we hit it or we shake it 4 times. Peyak, niso, nisto, newo. Peyak, niso, nisto, newo. 4 times. And that's to waken everything up, you know, so that they will be here too. All the spirits, the ancestors, they're here. Everything's living around us as we speak. So one of the medicines here is sage. And when we go to pick the sage or the cedar, and here's tobacco, but there's something called kinnikinnick that's out in the world. It's on a tree, and there's certain protocols. But here we use tobacco as well in this form. Yeah. And the sweetgrass. When we go to pick, what we do is we take down some tobacco and we put it down on the ground and we thank the plant for its life force that it gives up to us so that we can pray, you know, in a good way. And so when we pick, we say thank you, then we pick, and then we use it again in our ceremonies. And so this is what has assisted me in finding my path and what I need to do in the world, you know. And I know there's lots of different cultures everywhere, and whatever works for you to keep you on your own path to be productive, I'll say, to be thoughtful and caring with your neighbors and the people in your classrooms or your workforce and whatnot. You know, find that. After this pandemic, we're here now, we're out, we're allowed to be around people now. So, you know, this is the time. There's a prophecy of the rainbow tribe. And that's for something else that if you'd like to explore and find. I'm just going to be throwing out words here, and whatever you catch, again, it's up to you to want to know, to find that. And one thing you can do is take tobacco. You have a question about anything, and you put it on the ground about anything in your life. And what happens is all these people come and they'll help you if you need that. Or if you just want to give thanks, and this is what we do in the mornings. Me and my beautiful, humble family, we do. We smudge. We smudge in the mornings, and we give thanks to the good Creator. And we pray for our people, all people, for their health. We don't pray for money, etc. Okay, money is sunya. That's totally something else. But with that being said, I'm going to do this 4 times, and then we'll start the storytelling. Ahow! So here we are. I've decided to tell stories where John A. Macdonald used to stand here over everybody, looking at everybody, and over this park that is just loving colonialism. If you look around, you'll see like the library, knowledge, the Masons, this thing to the war effort, the Twin Towers. All of this is all symbolism right now. And I'm going to say that happened, that's where that's at. But you know what? These stories and everything up until this point have been here for thousands of years. Nothing's going to stop us. We're still here, and we're going to thrive, and we're going to teach, and we're all about embracing. We're not about, oh my God, this and that and this and that. No. If someone comes to somebody, bring them in. It's like the round dance. If someone comes there and they're not of all sorts, you let them in, and that's what stories are, for the way I see it anyways. So there's a legacy. John A. Macdonald, father of Confederacy, patriarch, all that colonialism stuff, got taken down. Where'd he go? Well, it's rapidly going, so what side of history are you on? What happened is the residential schools, and I'm feeling that more today because of what's happening around Turtle Island, and finding all these beautiful children that they're not with us, and we figured we're starting to see what's happening. Okay, things are changing in a good way. I actually want to take about a moment just to have a moment of silence, please, for those children that were taken, and what happened to them as well. Okay, so we'll take a moment, please. Wherever you are, wherever you're watching, I hope. So after the residential schools, there's another government policy from the federal government that was put onto the provincial government. And what it was is that it was called the 60s scoop, a form of kidnapping, where people through social services went on to First Nations and in the hospitals, and they took the babies, the papoose, from their families, from their indigenous families, because they thought that they were unfit to care for them, which is not how it is, okay? And it never was, and it never shall be like that. So we erase that. So it wasn't working. They found that the residential schools that they pushed on the people they weren't working, so they decided with the 60 scoop. So when I was just a little one, I was taken away. Just forced to be signed away from my mother. God rest her God, like her heart, and just loved her heart, everything. It broke families, In my family, we had residential school. We're survivors as well too, so it just carries on, But in this cycle, it's gonna stop. Okay, right now, let's learn our languages, all this stuff. But until that, all the good stuff. But until then, we were taken away from that. They said, and these are the history words I'm going to use. Is they said, let's kill the Indian and the child. What is that? Who thinks that way? This guy does. Where is he? He's gone. That's gone. Okay. So physically, it's gone. Now, but the emotions and the mental aspect of everything, and the spiritual, all that abuse, it lives on. But the medicines, like I was saying, help us. My mom was forced to sign me away because they were looking for my dad years ago. My dad was a horse thief. He did a bunch of other stuff. Right? That's, people do that kind of stuff. Right? Doesn't mean you go and take your kids. So, I was taken. And I was moved here to Regina, Queen City. And I was raised not indigenously. And I learned those ways quickly, But there was always something that was just pulling me, just, there's a hole here that needed to be filled up, but I just felt something else, and I couldn't describe it because I didn't know what it was, because I was so sheltered away from the res, from my biological family. I don't know, So, I lived a life in Regina. But that kept pulling me. Something kept pulling me. I kept hearing things, if you will. And what I found that to be was my mother's prayers. My grandmother's prayers. And that's what kept me going. I was young. I was about, and I'll say this, I was about 3 years old. And I looked around, and I was staring, I don't know what, I was just staring into this mirror. It was late at night. And I looked in the mirror, and then I really looked at myself, and I really thought about why do I look different? What's that about? And that's when I knew something was up, but I wasn't told anything for the longest time. I wasn't allowed to, know. And so, I went through elementary, high school, and I found myself living at my foster brother's house. And we get this phone call. Late at night, rings. My foster brother answers, "Hello?" And he looks at me. And I look at him. "Well, who is it?" And he just looks at me and he says, "It's your mother." And I look at him, I say, "My mother? My mom's your mom. What do you mean my mother?" Wow. And I started to get real nervous. And my foster brother had me the phone. And I put the phone in my ear and I said, "Hello?" That's how I get when I'm nervous. And she said, "This is your mother calling." And everything stopped. It just seemed like everything stopped in the world. And she said, "I'm in town. Why don't we meet?" I'm like, "You're in town? Why don't we meet?" "Okay, we're okay." And she sent me an address. And I said to my foster brother, I said, "Can I borrow your truck? I'm gonna go meet my mother. And he threw me the keys. Thank you. And I got in that truck. And I grabbed that screwdriver and I started it. You remember, everything's not all so serious. And I'm driving along. And I'm nervous along. And I'm getting closer along. And weirdly enough, like tonight's a full moon. That night was a full moon as well too. And she was at Humpty's. I'm like, yeah, let's eat. And I get there and I look around and everything. And I open the door and I look inside and I look around. I'm like, my mom's here. And I started to get more excited and I really wanted to meet her. But I was still kind of like, oh my God, what's going on? I was floating, it seemed like. And I stopped. And I looked over and I thought I might have seen my mother there. So I walk over there to my knee mama. And I go there and I go up to this person. I give her a big hug. I go, oh, it's so nice to meet you. And she turns around and she goes, ah! And I said, holy moly, I'm so sorry. And it wasn't my mother. And I ran away and I hid. I'm so sorry. That won't happen again. Or maybe it will. Just kidding. And then after that, I look over. And I see her. And I walk over there. And we lock eyes. And I take a deep breath. And I say, that's my mother. And she stops too. And from that moment on, it's like we're floating towards each other. Nothing else mattered. And it was like we never left each other's side. And we hugged and we embraced. And this hole here, it started to fill in a little more and a little more. She said, Tansei, son. And to hear those words, like the son, you know, that was like, and the way she said it, it was how I had imagined it. And she said, I missed you. I love you. Sagayatan. I love you. I've thought about you all this time, and now we're here. And we started crying for a while, like rain coming down. Kimiwan. And she told me this story that I'm going to tell you. And this story, it's helped me so many times. And when I feel down, I remember it, or I'm asked to tell it. And so having that smudge earlier and putting the tobacco down, I put down some tobacco about a week or so ago, just to see if I'm allowed to talk of this stuff. And then there's all these signs that were sent. And my mom said, son, when we're at the restaurant, sitting there, we're eating. She goes, son, I want to tell you something. I have a story to tell you. When you were young, real small, a little papoose, you were sick. And I looked at you, and your father looked at you, and we monitored you for a while. We weren't sure what was wrong with you, but it was your lungs. Something with your lungs. Because how I grew up for the first few months of my life was in a log cabin that my father had built, packed with mud. And we had a table. We had the old cook stove, the old iron cast stove, a bed, chairs. We didn't have much, but we had each other. And so, as it goes, my mother was out visiting one morning. My father was keeping me. And he looks at me. And he noticed that I was coughing more. Okay, son. We're going to take you to the hospital, okay? Let's just go right now, all right? I can see that. So, we get our way to the hospital. And then my father calls my mom. Hello? Yeah. Yeah, it's the boy. Yeah. Papoose. Aha. Yeah, he's sick. Yeah, we're at the hospital. Can you come? Okay. Yeah, I love you too. Nah, I love you more. Nah, I love you. Oh, no, you hang up first. No, you. Okay, on the count of 3. 1, 2. You hung up. And my mom on the res, she gets ready, gets in the car and makes her way to the hospital in North Battleford. She gets out, walks up to the door, and then looks around. And the way we think is that things happen for a reason. And she goes to the elevator, pushes it, goes into the elevator. Elevator moves, and all of a sudden opens up. And she steps out. And she looks down this long, dark hallway. And she thinks, oh, maybe I'm on the wrong floor. And she turns around to leave. And she hears this. And she looks way down the way there. And she sees this elderly gentleman, indigenous. And he's crawling on the ground, and he hears my mom there. And he clears his throat. My girl, a stum. And my mom just looks at him. And she didn't know what to do. It just seemed all dreamlike. And she makes her way over there. And he's on the ground and he's saying, can you please help me up? I can't see and I don't know where my room is. Please. How? Hi. And they walk back to his room. And my mom helps him sit down. Ape. He sits down. And my mom, she goes to leave. And he goes, Cheskwa. Ape. So she comes back, she sits down. And that Napeo there, he goes, I got something to tell you. Don't be afraid. Because he could sense that in my mother. He could feel it. And if he could see, he would see all the lights around my mom and how she's feeling at that time. Very powerful. And he said, don't be afraid, my girl. Okay, I know this is kind of weird and stuff, but I just want to say something. So just thanks for helping me back to my room. Now, I just want to say I traveled a long ways to be here, to come up to this hospital here. And my mom was anxious because she wanted to be there, to go to see her boy, to see myself, to love me, to help me back to health. But she was there listening because that's what her spirit wanted. And he said, I'm here to give your boy something. And my mom thought, how does this guy know I have, and she just let it go. And he said, you're probably wondering how I know that your boy is in this hospital. And I'll tell you, in our culture, our ways, before there's schools, before there's cities and towns, before there are statues and everything, there was our ways. And we had our ways. We had our councils. We had people that would give names and everything. That's what I do. I give names. And that's why I'm here. Your boy's name is Koyesk Pisagueo Asani. Well-spoken rock. You can tell that to him when he's older. It'll help him. And he went and he sat down again. My mom took out a smoke and she opened it, gave him the smoke, grabbed his hand. She said, "Thank you so much for telling me this. I'm humble. I don't know my ways. I wasn't taught them as well. But from this, I will tell him that. I will, and thank you so much." And she gave him a hug. "Sagaitan, I love you." And she said, "I gotta go though, because he's up there. But I'll come back, I promise. Okay? Hi. And she turned to leave. But she had one more question she wanted to ask him. And when she turned around, he was gone. The next story I'm going to talk to, reiterate, is about a bird. And it also has to do with ego. One day, greed and darkness came onto the earth in the form of jealousy and anger and madness. And all the animals were starting to just go crazy because they thought they were better than the other person, the other animal, or the other person, or whatnot, or the other four-legged, the other two-legged. And they started fighting with each other. And they started saying all these ugly words to each other and whatnot, and all these bannock slaps were flying around, and it just was ugly. And this was so long ago. When all of a sudden, there was this beautiful bird that came into the picture. And he thought he was the best ever. He was like, "Yeah, I'm the best." And he walked in like this. And he looked at all the animals there and he said, "I'm the best." "You think you're the best?" "No, I'm the best as I stand here. I rule over things now. I rule over the little ones there, because I'm the big one." Wow, these two birds that were listening, they would have nothing of it. So they came all the way up there. One of them put the wings around that one bird and choked him a bit. And don't do that, please. No good. Okay? Back in the day, this happened. And they choked him, and he couldn't breathe. And this other one came and grabbed that bird there too and put him on the ground, rolled them all through the dirt there. And they both had their way with them, rolling them in the dirt like that, like this, like that, like that. And he was going back and forth, and both of them, they took off. And this bird here, this beautiful bird that had beautiful feathers, was on the ground and started crying. And he was humbled. And he noticed, as he was getting up, he noticed that all of his beautiful feathers were gone. His cape was gone. And it was hard to breathe. And it was hard to talk as well. And it hurt so much. And when he tried to get up, it hurt. His back was all crooked. And the first thing that this new bird said was, "Caw, caw, caw, caw." And that's how the crow came to be. So that story was about the crow, and it's about ego, and it's about unchecked ego when someone's brain gets too big and humongous, and people think they're the best. And I'm sure we all know someone like that. But what happens to that with that is people get humbled. And that's what happened to the statue here too. So the thing is, if you want to go out and you want to, retaliate and act like people that act like that, it doesn't do anything, because something will come and humble them anyways, so we just pray that, they make it through that. That's what we do in our culture. So with that, I just want to say thank you for listening to the stories today. I'd like to thank M. Iron Star for coming out here and sharing the expertise here on filming, and also allowing your, bringing it to yourself as well. And I also want to, so thank you very much. Hi. And also all of you for listening today too. Stories are eternal. Go out and you're storytellers. So why don't you, if you want, ask your family, grandmothers, grandfathers, mushums, kokums, babas, for their stories. It's what pushes us forward together. Now's the time. Now that statues are falling, now's the time for us to start to know each other for real. Maybe implement that into our everyday as well. So much to learn from, and thank you for listening. Hi. Kinanasmalin. Ho. And Sagaitan. Love.